What's going on, cinema fans? I just got back from watching the Marvels, so obviously we gotta do a review of the Marvels. And before you say anything, no, this will not be a spoiler review. That will be next week. We'll be doing a spoiler review next week on a live stream on TikTok next week. Hear that again, next week. So stay tuned for a spoiler review of the Marvels next week live on Cinema Fans Podcast. But let's get into this review. You ready? I'm ready. Let's do it. And I had a hell of a blast. Imani as Miss Marvel was just the standout star of the whole film. Man, you can tell in her performance that she had a hell of a time. Look, before the Marvels, I was a okay fan of Brie Larson playing Captain Marvel, but after the Marvels, I am a stan of Brie Larson playing Captain Marvel. Like, you definitely can tell that she's more comfortable playing Captain Marvel in this film versus her last entry in her first film. And Monica was a goddess, and I'm just going to leave that there. The Marvels as a team worked very well, and the chemistry was on point. Now, I have to say, we don't get a lot of time to see them grow and bond as a team. Like, there's moments in the film where they'll start to bond and grow as a team, but then they're thrown into the next big thing in the film. Like, not giving it time to marinate and just absorb as just a moment in the film. The action was a joy to watch and never overstayed its welcome. Now, one of the things I was worried about going into this film is that I was worried that this film didn't feel like a sequel to Captain Marvel, but more like a team-up film. Now, I will say it does feel like both. It does feel like a direct sequel to the Captain Marvel film, but also feels like a team-up film that's been building up since Phase 4. And look, I had a fun time watching this, but I do feel like when it comes to the character arcs for the villain and Carol Danvers, I feel like their stories weren't given enough time to become compelling. Like, it'll start to get there, but then it's reeled back so it can jump into the next big thing in the film, which the same thing when it comes to building the chemistry and bonding with the team as well. Which it kind of reminds me of the Justice League, the first one, the Joss Whedon Justice League. It felt like similar to that, where there's moments where it feels very compelling, just like if you can feel the moments in the film, but then it's short-lived to jump into the next big thing or just move the story along and not give time for this film to really breathe. And I also will say it spends way too much time trying to set up things for the future of the MCU and not given enough time for the story itself to actually be fleshed out in the film. And honestly, I feel like it does hurt the third act when it does that. Now, the score of this film was okay, it had its moments, but it wasn't very memorable. Now, there is a lot of people saying that the villain in this film is the worst MCU villain that we've had yet. And I strongly disagree. There is a couple of MCU villains that come to mind that are way lower on that list, but not to say this is the best villain either. This villain is not great it's just not great. The villain in this film is just not that great, but it's not the worst. And I'll save that discussion for the spoiler review we'll be doing next week, so stay tuned for that. Overall, the hate for this film is definitely not deserved whatsoever. Now, there is a lot of valid criticisms towards this film that I see personally myself, but I mean, the the dramatic hate to this film is just not deserved. It's not. And again, there is a lot of criticisms from a lot of people that I respect as a movie reviewers and people that I respect that don't care for this film. And I respect their opinions because their criticisms are valid, because honestly, I can see the criticisms that they have for this film that honestly I will save for a discussion for the spoiler review. But I mean, I see it. I feel them. I feel what they're saying, but like the over dramatic hate for this film is completely asinine. For instance, my theater was packed and the energy in the theater room was just ecstatic. It was just fun, joyful. It was just a blast. Like, everybody in the theater room had a blast. Everybody was responding very well. It honestly reminded me some of the times I've had with, you know, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America. When I first went to go see those films, it was just, you know, people were laughing, there was a little bit of crying, which I felt like was a little too much, but overall, everyone in the theater was packed, had an amazing time. It's a fun MCU film, that's all I gotta say. Honestly, I would watch this before I would watch Thor: Love and Thunder. I'll leave it there. Now, there is only one post-credit scene, so stick around for the mid-credit scene. There is no after-credit scene, it's just a mid-credit scene, so please go watch that, especially for the future of the MCU as well. With all that to be said, what will I rate this? And I will give it a solid 7 out of 10. And if you don't like it, you can kiss my behind. I do not care. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. If you hate me, go ahead. I don't care, but it is what it is. So that concludes my review of the Marvels, but I will be doing a spoiler review live next week, so stay tuned for that. Follow and like for more, because this is the home for fans of cinema. Cinema fans. Peace out.